you just talked about like the actual Pulse token and PHEX being like the stalwarts basically of this. And I'd like to get your thoughts on what have you kind of seen or what's been your observation with the PulseChain launch. We are now, 4 months pretty much exactly since the launch. It was May the 12th. But the launch of PulseChain, basically with the chart, compared to other L1s from the past, Solana, Cardano, even ETH, how does Pulse stack up 4 months in? And obviously you're not worried, it doesn't sound like, but should people be concerned, be worried at all? Not necessarily because of the SEC news, but obviously we're at max FUD. We've had some crazy tweets lately. We had Naga Bo saying that he sold all of his PHEX for PDI, which we're going to get into here in a moment, everybody. If you're waiting for the PDI and Atropa conversation, we're definitely going to get there in a moment. And Ewok, I got news for you. We got flamed big time on a video about that the other day, so we'll talk about that. And then we had, and I almost don't even want to acknowledge this person, but this Brandon B guy that it seems like he's doing kind of a Furu BitBoy type of attitude change to get attention or something. But he had this tweet the other day, really good bottom signal if it is one. But he says, given Richard Hart abandoning his projects and the SEC uncertainty, basically saying he's going to start buying, I guess that's the crypto.com token, Crow, Phantom, and Solana, among others, moving forward. And he's just going to hold his Pulse bags and everything. And then he really shits on Richard Hart a lot personally. So, not that he is anybody. I'm just saying that we are seeing stuff like that now. So I'm interested to get your thoughts on how PulseChain compares to those other L1s and if we might be seeing like prime capitulation here right now.
So in terms of like the technicals, like PulseChain is really underperforming, I think, a lot of the other L1s, but it's launched in a unique situation, right? Where we've talked now at length about how diluted everything got across all in your user account is the same. So the same, let's say, I forget, 40,000 people SAC for Pulse, 120 or 140,000 SAC for PulseX. You had like 120,000 hex stakers. Let's just say there's like 150 to 200,000 users on Pulse, and that's being generous. That's not changed. And like we need new users to drive this thing. We're not there yet. But the other guys got users because it was different. It wasn't like a public, like free public launch like this was. Those had initial and like private investment deals that were done behind closed doors, and they were promoted on a lot of the large platforms, and they were easy to convert. There's a fiat into them right away in the middle of a bull market, and with this there's like this learning curve, and we're actually trying to push a new way to do finance with DeFi. So there's way more there and people won't get interested or want to put in the effort to learn to do the work until the green candles start to print. So somebody's got to set the bottom. Somebody's got to put the money down on the line. And when that happens, you'll start to see all of those other things, dominoes, start to fall. So don't compare this to those, because PulseChain is unlike any other L1 launch like we've ever seen before.
So what do you make of the whole, I've heard this a couple times, everyone's afraid to be that person, to put that money down because they're afraid they're going to be exit liquidity. Yeah. How do we get around that? It's a rough spot to be. I guess it's just having the balls big enough to do it, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, I'm not the guy to do it. I don't have big enough bags to sit out here and put in $150 million on my own, right? Nobody really does. And yeah, there's a lot of exit liquidity, but like the longer this goes on at these prices, the more people have to sell to get the same amount of dollars extracted. And so like the longer it goes on, the better it is for the long-term health of the chart.
Right.
And a lot of the stuff's going to change, and people are going to have different feelings and sentiment, and people are going to put the money on the line when other things start to happen with the macro environment that we talked about earlier, and when money starts flowing back into crypto.
Yeah.
They're not going to stop at that. There's tons of ETH whales that are like looking at these ERC20 prices, probably like licking their chops, just waiting for someone to take the first punch, right? And then it starts with Bitcoin, then it more quickly now is happening, then going into Ethereum, and then from Ethereum into all the other L1s. And, you know, ironically enough, PulseChain has kind of been in a league of its own and kind of led the charge in terms of like DeFi transaction volumes and interest and amount of use, and like how much ETH fees have gone down ever since PulseChain forked. Like it shows how much activity hexagons create on the Ethereum blockchain. You know, and I think a perfect thing that goes along analog to that is like, look at what happened with the Zen launches. Like Zen is a subset of the Hex community. That's how Jack got any notoriety. It's by starting there at ground zero with the Hex money, and then and look at what those contracts have done to fees over the course of its existence on all the chains. So it kind of proves like, you know, for if it doesn't matter the percentage of hexagons that's involved with Zen, the point is that hexagons are using the chains, and now we can spread our use across two chains to, you know, mitigate the downsides on either, right? And so I don't know, I just think it's a good setup, and it's just going to take more time.
I think you make a great point, and it kind of shows maybe the pointlessness of my original question about the L1 comparisons and how we're seeing people compare them on Twitter a whole bunch. You know, we've been seeing it. It makes sense to do. I understand why people would do it. But you're right. I mean, like these other ones, you know, there's VC capital, seed rounds, ICOs, and stuff like that. PulseChain is anything but any of that stuff. So I think that is something we all should probably keep in mind, because it is everybody's favorite pastime to kind of compare it to the initial ETH chart. So I do think that's a great point.
Hey, I'm guilty as charged. I've done it.
Yeah.
I've compared Hex and Pulse to a lot of different blue chip cryptos, and man, they're in a league of their own, you know, because it is, you know, the most bullish thing about all this is like the big funds don't have any. It's all regular, you know, dum-dums like us that has all the supply. And it's like, if they want to come get it from us, they're going to have to convince us to sell it to them, right? At any price. So it's like, sure, you're going to get the guys that are willing to sell Hex at a penny and 5 cents and 10 cents. But when that supply has been eaten up, you know, and there's a fund that has 2 billion out of the 2 billion Hex out of the 16 billion liquid user supply, you know, that's a large percent. Like, where are they going to turn for the next? Like, there's a 0.5% to 1% of all Hex total supply is available on market in the market supply. So even though there's 16 billion Hex liquid user supply, only less than 1% is available in the market, which that tells you that it's valued, and it is used for more than just, you know, trading games. And I think all that's going to come up it's going to catch up with everyone eventually. And like, there is going to become a huge shortage of the things that count, and the things that count are the things that are the most usable. And it's fun using PulseChain. I'm going to tell you, not thinking about gas prices is fun. I have interacted with the blockchain a lot lately, which I didn't get to do on ETH a lot.
Yeah.